Imagine standing at the edge of a vast cliff. The wind whips around you, cold and relentless, and below, the jagged rocks are hidden by swirling mist. You look down and realize that for years, maybe even decades, you've been teetering on this cliff without even knowing it. Every choice, every regret, every unnecessary worry, it has been carrying you closer to a fall you could have avoided. And then a voice whispers through the fog, calm and unwavering. Stop, you don't have to live this way. That voice belongs to a monk, sitting silently on a stone in a distant monastery whose life is devoted not to the pursuit of wealth, fame, or comfort, but to truth. And today, his advice could save you years of suffering. You see, most of us walk through life blindfolded, trusting a mind that is a master of deception. Your mind, the same organ that writes your story, that interprets the world, that convinces you that you are not enough, it is lying to you. Every anxious thought, every self-doubt, every illusion of urgency is not reality. It is a reflection of fear masquerading as wisdom. And the first lesson the monk teaches is this: your suffering is often the invention of your own mind. Think about that for a moment. How much of the pain you feel, the tension that knots your shoulders, the sleepless nights is truly real? How much of it is imagined, exaggerated, or rehearsed over and over in the theater of your own thoughts? The monk tells a story of a man who feared poverty so deeply that he refused opportunities, living in constant anxiety over what might never happen. He spent his days preparing for disasters that never came. By the time he realized the truth, decades had passed, and he was trapped not by circumstance but by his own mind. The monk explains that our thoughts are like clouds. They drift across the sky of our consciousness. Sometimes they are small and harmless, mere wisps of smoke. Sometimes they form storms that seem like hurricanes, powerful and overwhelming. But no matter how dark or heavy the clouds appear, the sky underneath is untouched. The sky remains vast, clear, and infinite. Your mind is like the sky. Your thoughts are clouds. And the suffering? It is the illusion that the clouds are all there is. You might ask, but if my mind is lying, how do I know what is real? The monk smiles at this question because it is exactly the right one. He teaches that reality is always simple. It does not panic, it does not dramatize, it does not plan for 1,000 imaginary catastrophes. Reality exists in the moment, in the now. When you touch your hand, when you hear a bird, when the wind brushes your face, this is reality. Everything else is a story your mind tells. And stories are powerful, yes, but they are not truth. Here's the twist. Most people fight their minds as if they were enemies, trying to suppress thoughts, push them away, control them. They fight anxiety with willpower, try to eliminate fear with courage, or battle doubt with reasoning. But the monk teaches the opposite. Do not fight your mind. Watch it. Understand it. Laugh at it. Imagine a child throwing a tantrum. Do you wrestle with the child? Or do you let the tantrum pass, knowing it will not last forever? Your mind is the same. The more you struggle against its lies, the more power you give them. Awareness is your only weapon. Observing without judgment is your shield. He shares a daily practice, deceptively simple but profound. Every morning, sit quietly and ask yourself, which thoughts are true? Which thoughts are stories? Watch them rise and fall like the tide, and gradually the veil begins to lift. The lies become obvious. The fears seem smaller. The weight of imagined suffering begins to dissolve. Over time, you begin to notice something remarkable. You are not your mind. You are the sky beneath the clouds. You are the observer of the storm, untouchable and vast. But understanding this intellectually is not enough. You must feel it. You must live it. The monk explains it with a metaphor of a river. Life is a flowing river. Most people struggle against the current, fighting the water, resisting the inevitable. They cling to rocks, hoping for stability, only to be battered by waves of frustration. The monk says, let go of the rocks, float, trust the river. When you stop fighting, when you stop believing the lies of your mind, you are no longer creating suffering. The current carries you effortlessly, and for the first time, you see the beauty of the journey instead of fearing the destination. There is another layer to this wisdom, one that is often overlooked. Our culture tells us that success, love, and happiness are external achievements. If we get the job, the promotion, the partner, the house, then finally we will be safe, finally we will be happy. But the monk warns that this is another illusion. The mind will always find something to fear, something to lose, something to crave. External conditions can never anchor your peace. Real freedom comes from the inside. By seeing through the lies your mind tells, by discerning between what is real and what is imagined, you liberate yourself from the endless chase. The monk's advice extends even further into how we relate to time. Most people live in the past or the future. They replay regrets, mourn mistakes, or anticipate disaster. This is fertile ground for suffering. But the monk emphasizes time is only now. The past exists as memory, the future as imagination, and neither holds the power to harm you unless you give it permission. Focus on the present moment. Ground yourself in it. Even a single breath, fully felt, can anchor you in reality, dissolving the illusions that plague your mind. And then comes the final, almost shocking truth. The monk says suffering is optional. Not in a trite, just think happy thoughts way, but in the radical sense that you have agency over your perception. You cannot always control events, but you can control whether you accept the stories your mind feeds you. You can recognize fear, doubt, and anxiety as mere clouds, rising and falling, and choose not to ride them. This is not easy, it is the work of a lifetime. But the alternative, blindly accepting your mind's lies, is what drags people into decades of unnecessary suffering. He teaches that every person carries a mental mirror. In it, our thoughts, emotions, and fears are reflected endlessly. Most of us stare at this mirror, terrified, as if it were reality itself. The monk says, step back. Observe the reflection. Do not confuse it with yourself. Once you do, something miraculous happens. The mirror loses its power. You begin to move through life with clarity and ease. Decisions are no longer paralyzed by fear. Relationships are no longer distorted by projection. Pain is no longer magnified by illusion. Here's another metaphor he loves. Consider a garden overtaken by weeds. The weeds represent lies, fears, and false narratives in your mind. You can pull them one by one, but they will return if you do not address the soil. The monk teaches that the soil, the underlying awareness and presence, is naturally fertile and pure. By cultivating this awareness, the weeds lose their grip. Thoughts may appear, but they do not take root. The garden flourishes not through struggle, but through conscious presence. And there is a certain beauty in this approach, a poetry that cannot be overstated. Life, with all its uncertainties, becomes a canvas. The monk's advice allows you to paint it with intention rather than reaction. Fear, regret, and illusion no longer dictate the colors. You begin to see patterns, subtle harmonies, and opportunities that were invisible when blinded by your mind's constant chatter. What once felt chaotic and painful now carries rhythm, depth, and clarity. Yet he cautions against arrogance. Understanding that your mind lies does not make you immune to mistakes, suffering, or unexpected events. It simply grants you perspective. Like a sailor reading the winds, you cannot stop storms from forming, but you can navigate them with skill. You cannot control the river, but you can float instead of resisting. You cannot silence every thought, but you can observe without being consumed. The freedom he offers is not a fantasy, it is a disciplined, conscious way of being. The monk also emphasizes patience. Most people want instant enlightenment, immediate peace, or overnight clarity. But the mind has trained itself over decades, and unwinding its patterns requires time, practice, and gentleness. The monk likens it to chiseling a sculpture from stone. Each observation, each moment of awareness chips away at illusion. The process is slow, meticulous, and sometimes exhausting. Yet the reward, a life free from unnecessary suffering, is worth every stroke. And here's where the twist deepens. Suffering is not inherently bad. It can be a teacher if we perceive it correctly. Pain, fear, and disappointment illuminate the lies our minds tell us. They reveal attachment, expectation, and illusion. The monk teaches that every hardship is a mirror, reflecting the untruths we have accepted as reality. By examining suffering with clarity and awareness, we transform it into wisdom. We are not escaping life. We are seeing it more fully, more truthfully, more beautifully. Finally, he returns to a single, haunting truth. Your mind will always lie. It will invent enemies, magnify dangers, and rewrite your history. But awareness is the antidote. Conscious presence is the shield. Observing without attachment is the liberation. And the moment you truly grasp this, The years of suffering you feared are no longer inevitable. They are optional. You hold the power to step off the cliff, to float on the river, to walk through life unburdened by illusions. The monk's advice is simple. Watch your mind, question its stories, live in the present, and you will save yourself decades of unnecessary suffering. So now imagine that cliff again. Only this time you are not afraid. The mist parts, the rocks seem distant, and beneath you stretches the infinite sky. The wind still blows, but it is a friend, not a threat. You have learned to float on the river, to observe the clouds, to step lightly through time. The suffering that once seemed inevitable has lost its grip. And the monk, sitting silently on his stone, nods gently. You are awake. You are free. You are alive. And here is your call to action, a final gift from the lesson. Carry this awareness into your life. Notice the lies your mind tells, observe without judgment, and act with clarity. Share this wisdom with others who stumble blindly through their own storms. Comment below with the insights that struck you most. Like this video if it reminded you of the power of conscious presence. Subscribe to Echoes of Greatness so you never forget that within you lies a sky untouched by clouds, a river that carries you, and the freedom to step beyond suffering. Because the monk's advice is not just a story, it is a path. And every step you take on it saves you years, maybe even decades of unnecessary pain. Walk it with courage, with awareness, and with the unshakable knowledge that your mind's lies do not define you. You define you.